work. Let's go live. Hello everybody. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Uh, Give me a second.
It says it hasn't gone live yet.
No, we're live now.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. It just went up.
Yeah. All right. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear Argent? Argent, say something.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no, I wanted to kind of talk about this with somebody I know who has also watched it, and I think if you know my friend Argent here is created probably some of my favorite YouTube videos, the Sci-Fi Pulsi, which is looking at a lot of science fiction and some fantasy works through the lens of political science. And I think
I also did this one for Is It Fascist, if I recall.
yeah, oh, I don't think I've seen that one, but yeah, Starship Troopers. I wanted to make this since it's been kind of since on Twitter lately or X. There's been kind of the perennial debate about how certain left wing media or works that were of media that are kind of made to satirize or insult right wing ideas end up kind of coming around to being based, and the progressives really wanted to own the chuds again and kind of point out the fact that Starship Troopers, don't you know, Chuddy, is a satire of like fascism, and it also got the left to be like, well, the Terran Federation are evil colonizers against the bugs, and it kind of shows again the extreme amount of racism that people on the left can have, where it's the same logic of, you know, you can't be mean to orcs because they
It's more
remind me of.
anti. I think it's more misanthropy and just a hatred
Mm-hmm.
of humanity. But yeah, I get what you
It's
mean.
like when they go like, "Oh, you can't be mean to orcs because they remind me of like minority groups," and the same thing happens with the bugs and Starship Troopers. Where, to be fair, there is kind of an indication in the movie, and I think maybe in the book, that humanity kind of started the conflict by encroaching on bug space, but in the movie at least it shows, well, the bug's first response is to murder an entire colony of Mormons and then like launch a meteor at Buenos Aires and kill
So
millions of
I
people.
was just looking this up beforehand. So the Mormons landed on a bug planet
Mm-hmm.
without the approval of the Federation and then got killed. But the bugs went beyond that and they launched the asteroid at Buenos Aires. So, I mean, they probably shouldn't have been there, but it's not as if there was anything to justify,
Mm-hmm.
like, the asteroid.
Mm-hmm. But just thinking about, because earlier this week I read the book for the first time and watched the movie afterwards, and I gotta say the thing about the book is it's like that and Ray Bradbury, where I also read earlier this year. I read, or last year I read Fahrenheit 451, and
Mm-hmm.
the thing I really appreciate about kind of the golden age of science fiction era of the 40s, 50s, and 60s is a lot of it really is just kind of excuses for weird, like, um, borderline autists to just kind of rant about their own pet political ideologies. And
Yep.
like the whole conversation about, oh, all art is political or science fiction's always been political, and I'm like, maybe, but at least back then, like, the ideas were interesting, and it wasn't all just, oh, it has to conclude in progressivism.
I just want to say, start off with, if you guys haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. The movie's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like politics aside, just as a movie, it's a lot of fun. It's like campy '90s sci-fi action at its best.
Yeah,
Um,
like, even, you can take a lot of the satire is still funny, because like I love the satire in RoboCop as well, but you can also just watch it as a completely straightforward like sci-fi action movie. Um, if for nothing else, Clancy Brown is the drill sergeant and Michael Ironside as Lieutenant Raschek. But yeah, like, if you haven't read the book, and if you don't really know anything about Starship Troopers, well, go watch the movie at least. But like a criticism.
Why don't we start off, Fritz, by just saying summarizing briefly what the background is, just in case there's people who haven't read the book,
Yeah, I was gonna
because the
say
book
that
goes
is
into a bit more detail.
because the background of it is it's a science fiction book written by Robert Heinlein in 1959, where set in a future where humanity has started colonizing the stars and has and has come into conflict with other alien races, predominantly this race, a race of a hive mind of large giant bugs called like the arachnids, and it follows the main character Juan Rico, who in the book is of Filipino descent, and it is set in a world where humanity has united under a one world government known as the Terran Federation, and in the Federation, voting rights and being able to run for political office is restricted to civilians who enlist to citizens, and citizenship is only gained by serving a term of service in the Federation, usually in the form of military service.
Although I think Heinlein later said sometimes it's civil service, or it could be on work projects or stuff like that.
Yes.
So just if I could go in a bit about, so the background is that basically the world during the Cold War became governed by social scientists who tried to impose their basically liberal views of reality. Like they stopped punishing crime, they stopped disciplining children. I think there was widespread decadence. Society just more or less broke down, and there was a cataclysmic war between the Russo-Anglo-American alliance and China. And basically, society collapsed. And a group of veterans in Scotland started basically kind of their own gang, and they just started killing criminals and looters and stuff like that. And they would only allow other veterans to join. And eventually, they just kind of brought order back to the world, and they decided they weren't going to go down this route again. So the idea behind it, I'm just going to finish my thought, is that what we're going to select for the people who are going to lead society are people who are willing to risk their lives for the good of society. And then that, more than intelligence or lineage or anything like that, is who you want running things. Someone who's willing to make that ultimate sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. And in one of their classes, in high school, a mandatory but not credited class is history and moral philosophy. And in these classes, you kind of learn that in a justification for the societies, the fact that even though they've kind of brought back capital punishment and corporal punishment for children, the result has actually been that crime rates are at the lowest they've ever been. Taxes are low, and government oversight or government overreach for law enforcement is actually relatively relaxed, because society is kind of self-regulates. There's a quote there's a example where instead of having juvenile delinquents, if a child is caught doing that, they'll be flogged or executed along with their parents, because the idea is the parent has failed to raise a child that won't harm others in society. And so there's more of an idea of shared responsibility. And also a nice kind of based line is the fact that the Professor Dubois in the book explains that children were just raised by social scientists and child psychology experts who thought, oh, any sort of punishment is wrong, and it led in a lot of ways to the horrible dystopia.
Yeah, it led to a complete breakdown of law and order. It probably led to a society like the one we had in Clockwork Orange, which I haven't watched, but my understanding is Society was on the verge of collapse due to widespread youth violence.
And the idea is that like punishments are so strict, but the upside is that they've actually become incredibly rare. Like they say in the high school, like, you know, the principal can like beat students with like a rod or a stick, but he hasn't had to do it in years because nobody would even think to you know.
I think there is some basis. I remember when I was reading a book on the history of Mexico, the Aztecs were known for some of like the most severe criminal punishments of all time, and it did eventually lead to a very low crime rate because of how like brutal they were. Like capital punishment and that kind of stuff does work. In fact, it's interesting because it historically it's extremely popular. If you actually look at it, I think in almost all cases, capital punishment was abolished by Supreme Courts or like parliaments against the will of the people, because people generally speaking like it actually.
They liked it so much that it used to just be a popular thing for people to go and witness a public execution. Even up to like when people were getting killed by the electric chair, people would make an event out of it and like light fireworks and have barbecues. Just
Well,
because
I
they
like to
wanted
say it's like a morally permissible form of eugenics.
But and again, this will probably gets me into trouble with some people in these circles, but like I don't believe in like physical punishment for children. I really don't think you should hit children, but I kind of understand the idea of being too soft on kids will kind of lead to them not understanding discipline and uh morality later on in life, but
So I can actually speak to this a bit because I have a bunch of people in my family who are teachers and I've worked in schools. Kids like discipline, like they like structure, they like order. What the issue is that, and this is the same from my understanding, people in the military they like discipline, structure, and order. They don't like what they view as arbitrary authority, and a lot of teachers who are very strict are just very arbitrary. Like they play favorites, stuff like that. But children, generally speaking, thrive in environments like that.
and that kind of gets back to just the book is because I know I did a little research on Heinlein, and he did serve in the Navy back in like the late 1920s and early 1930s, um, and you can tell like he just and I guess like where this differs a lot from the movie is that Heinlein kind of is highlighting and is like celebrating the kind of order in the military. Um, I suppose there is a bit, or at least the way I interpreted it, is that there is a little bit of a reservation to the fact that Johnny Rico doesn't really understand anything outside of the military, and I guess my main criticism of Highland's kind of worldview is that there doesn't actually seem to be a higher goal or any sort of spiritual aim for it. It's still like a one world government, you know?
Um, so yeah, no, I agree. It's yeah, it is. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. So to talk about the recent controversy, or actually, sorry, before that, I think probably the ultimate example. So, okay, sorry, I just had a brain fart there. So something I've found is the left does not understand the right. They are, generally speaking, I find incapable of considering worldviews that are not their own,
Yes,
even if they don't
yes.
accept them.
Again, they
Like,
literally just think people on the right are Voldemort, Hitler.
like if we look at Islamic terrorists, for instance, I don't agree with their worldview, but if in their worldview blowing themselves up will send them to heaven, that is a rational action. I'm not saying it's good or moral, but I can understand that. I can understand the idea where if we all just held hands and racism went away, we saying kumbaya would be good. They can't understand other perspectives. So what they tend to do is just take something that like right wing people say or do and then make it like kind of absurd. And then they say, well, this is a parody. Like Judge Dredd is a really good example of that. Rorschach's from Watchmen is probably the ultimate example.
I think Warhammer 40k as well.
Yeah, although it's more dystopian, but like the Judge Dredd universe is like a utopia, um, where they killed all the criminals off.
Mm-hmm.
It's they don't understand. Like I think when Alan Moore was writing Watchmen, I don't think he got that people would empathize with like Rorschach having a consistent set of morals and being loyal to those, and people valuing that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like with Starship Troopers, and I guess we can get into kind of the movie and the controversy a bit. Um, I find a lot of it is it's a parody, it's over the top, it's satire, but a lot of it is kind of played straight.
Mm-hmm. Although at the same time, like, you have the fact that Paul Verhoeven just kind of chose very attractive people who also kind of act vapid and empty-headed as the main characters. But at the same time, like, as opposed to now, like, hey, they at least put beautiful people in a movie, and, like, again, as I said earlier, the movie completely works if you take it 100% straight, you know? Because
Well,
the
I
bugs
mean,
are genuinely evil.
it's okay. Well, but just going off of what you said, okay, they're vapid, but isn't that kind of the point that like Johnny Rico's like spoiled, the rest of them are just kind of kids who don't understand life? I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
basically what Michael Ironside yells at them about. And then they join the army, and then they grow up, and they get more mature, and they become stronger people as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
Those who don't die. So, I mean, if we're gonna go like down that, and I think that's very true to the book, if I remember. Doesn't Rico grow a lot as a person
He
once
does.
he joins the army?
He does. It's a somewhat similar character arc. There's even the fact that in the book, his father, who both in the book and the movie are incredibly disapproving of him joining the civil or joining the mobile infantry, because they're already in like kind of he's like a wealthy businessman. He's like, I don't even need to vote or any of that. But then it ends up where he volunteers to join the military as well, and is actually a lower rank than his own son. And again, you also just see at the end of the movie as well that in like the kind of final propaganda reel, Johnny Rico is now repeating the same things his instructors have said. And if you're looking at a satire, you can go, oh, look at this kind of brainwashed, brain-dead society where he just did what he's just continuing this kind of militarist, attitude. But at the same time, it's, hey, if you take it straight, he's learned from the people, that went before him who are more experienced, and he's able to carry on that tradition, which makes a lot more sense considering they're in a war. And it also, I think, depends on, do you believe that their conflict is justified, which I genuinely think it is, even if it's not exactly black and white always.
I just as you were talking about that, it made me think about how I don't know how much you've been following the recruitment crisis that most Western militaries have been
I
undergoing.
followed a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so just for people in the audience, basically every Western country is facing a problem where they have basically no one joining the army. Even the United States is facing this problem. Um, the UK has had to basically decommission a bunch of ships because no one wants to join. And if you look at it, it's like the UK, like I did a video on it, but they like have commissars in their groups. They release like the diversity inclusion coordinator who could override the officer. Like they explicitly, and I think this is in the U.S. Army too. They say like young males who are patriotic, you have to like watch them. We can't allow young patriotic males to join and stuff like that. But in like China and Russia, if you watch their recruitment ads, the recruitment ads are very much like learn to be a man, learn a skill, serve your country, see the world, like be all you can be, basically.
And it's
And
and again, American U.S. military recruitment ads were like this only, even up to like a decade or so ago, were still like this. But It's especially bad for the United States considering that the exact demographic that they're focusing all their hatred towards, young Southern white conservative males, that's the demographic where a lot of America's warrior class came from, is, these long-serving military families. And, no wonder they don't want to join anymore. It's also going to exacerbate the competency crisis as well, because, the people that do join is the are the Alphabet People Brigade. Is the Alphabet People Brigade really going to be quite as effective as, the next Chinese division?
Well, it's ultimately, and I'm sure you found this in your life too, young men want a purpose.
Yes.
They want a purpose, they want structure, they want to know they're going somewhere. And it is a cliche, but I think a lot of people do join the army because they want to be part of something bigger than themselves and they want to serve their country. And if you say, like, anybody who's patriotic, we can't let them in because they're like evil racists, those are the people who actually want to serve their country. Like, those are the people who actually want to join. And I guess just kind of going to, like, this book, like, in the movie, they don't seem to be having the same recruiting problems.
No.
Like, you can say, like, their propaganda's goofy and stuff, but people seem to join.
And it's not even just because, service guarantees citizenship. Like, what's interesting in the world of Starship Troopers is that even in the middle of a war, at the height of the war, the military is still completely voluntary. Meaning that they still believe in the ideals of the only people worthy of enfranchisement have to be willing to give up their lives for the greater good. And, having this be conscripted and forcing it on people would kind of defeat the whole purpose. But it also shows that, in this society, they must have enough recruits because, they don't have to resort to conscription.
Well, it's if you look at if I recall in the book, it says you can quit the army at any time, like
Yes.
even before a drop.
Yes,
Like,
at any point outside of combat or in court martial, you are allowed to resign, and nothing will happen to you other than you can't join up again.
yeah, and you don't have the right to vote. So, getting into the recent controversy, so where did this come from? Like, the left wing people on Twitter thought they were being smart by bringing up Starship Troopers and saying it was a criticism of fascism or something.
I think so. And also I think I've heard, like, there's the new game Helldivers 2, which is kind of based on it. And I literally just saw, like, somebody tweeted out saying, like, I don't want to play the game because the Earth people are colonizers and against the evil space bugs, and like, I have a friend who's Palestinian, so I don't feel good about playing this. And so people rightly point out, okay, so gross space bugs remind you of Palestinians.
Well, I mean, that's always kind of the irony of this thing, but yeah, like, my impression is, actually, I hadn't even looked at this game. This game looks cool. I might have to play it. But so like, okay, let's talk about, does Starship Troopers the movie work as a parody of fascism? Firstly, is the impression these people have that it's a serious critique? Because I feel like that's what they're saying, like, that it's like a deep critique of it. Like, it's not just, it has goofy fascist imagery in parts of it.
Mm-hmm. They probably do, or they need to act like they do because they have to pull one over on the chuds. But yeah,
like, I don't think it, like, really intellectually or politically says anything about
especially since, like, I think famously Paul Verhoeven started reading the book, then just said, I don't care, and just he's like, I want to make a complete parody of this, or a satire of this book, and, like, the writers were like, I don't know how we do this, but they somehow did. But yeah, like, it's the same thing about how, like, RoboCop is, like, a complete kind of satire on a lot of, like, 1980s American culture, but at the same time, it's not like you can't really see like Verhoeven is like,
Well, isn't it like saying RoboCop is pro-crime,
yeah,
kind of? Like RoboCop is like, and once again, this is to me like I never even really thought of it as a parody of fascism. I thought of it as more like a parody of over the top sci-fi military action movies
yeah,
from the like Aliens or Terminator or stuff like that. Like just trying to be really edgy and hardcore. And I mean, they're definitely more than fascism. I think it is kind of a not necessarily a criticism, but like a parody of just military culture in general, like boot
mm-hmm.
camp and like, hooah, let's go fight for America. But it comes across as a very affectionate parody, if
Yeah,
you
I
know
think
what
that's
I
a
mean.
really good way of putting it because like it has all of the beats of that as well. Like a lot of it also kind of reminds me of like, Full Metal Jacket, right? Where um although Full Metal Jacket, the boot camp part is obviously much more is the main focus, or is a lot more interesting. I always find it interesting how in like military movies or stuff like that, everybody loves a good boot camp scene. Everybody loves like the basic training stuff with like the psychotic drill instructor and like, the recruits like having to learn stuff and all of that. Um but yeah, and again, I agree with you that it really feels more like it's a parody of like, yeah, of like army, of like American like military culture, or like
Have you
old
seen
just
Team America World Police?
no, I haven't.
Okay, because it reminds me a lot of that. Because like Team America World Police is like an affectionate parody. Like it's supposed to parody like America going out policing the world, invading random countries, blowing stuff up. But they have like the big dicks, pussies, asshole speech, and it basically like is kind of celebrating America at the same time. And it's like, yeah, it's goofy. Yeah, they do stupid shit, but at the end of the day, like, who else are you gonna call?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this kind of feels a bit like that to me. Like it's making fun of it. It's over the top, but I don't really see how it's saying these things are necessarily bad.
Yeah, that, and how like, yeah, it's making fun of kind of like idiotic, like the idea of like the kind of meat-headed general where, or military staff, where it's like, okay, we're just gonna go in and invade their planet, and as soon as they land they get like slaughtered, and like their entire fleet gets blown up. But it really can't be a criticism of fascism, because even in the movie, like the Terran Federation is really, really far from fascism. Like the only thing that seems to be it has in common with fascism is like glorification of the military. But other than that, like even in the movie, the Sky Marshal, who was in charge of the attempted invasion of the Bugs' home planet, like after its failure, he like steps down, and a black woman takes over as the new Sky Marshal and says, "Okay, now to actually fight the Bugs, we have to research them." I'm like, that would
Uh,
not happen in fascism.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that soldiers, even if they politically support a war, just from what I've seen, resonate with movies that portray like the leadership as being stupid or there
Mm-hmm.
being bureaucratic failings or intelligence stuff like that. Like I don't know if you've seen Paths of Glory.
I have.
It's a really oh you have okay because to me that's the example of a like a movie that's critical of the military and the experience of being a soldier, but isn't really political, if that makes sense. Like, it's not
Yeah,
saying anything about the brighter conflict. It's just saying this is the kind of stuff that soldiers have to put up
it's,
with.
yeah, it's saying, in like, especially in that conflict, that these generals are just sitting around saying, okay, we have to go attack this, but and that translates into reality of, especially in like World War I, thousands and thousands of men dying over a tiny piece of ground.
Yeah, and that's not really necessarily, that's just kind of like, I'm sure most people who have served in the army would say they've had time moments like that. I mean, obviously not as severe, but they've had like really dumb stuff from their superior officers
Mm-hmm.
or like dumb bureaucratic stuff. It's just so they said they sympathize with the bugs, right? Like they
Yeah, because
empathize
they
with
view
them.
it's like, oh, the evil, because they have to they decided that, okay, the Federation, or the Terran Federation, are evil fascists, and so who are they fighting? Well, who do we like? Are oppressed brown people, and so they're gonna say, okay, why didn't they make peace with the bugs, or the bugs are the actual victims? So yeah, which again, it's ironic because Heinlein in the book says, like, describes the arachnid bug aliens as like a perfect example of communism actually working, and it only works because they're a complete hive mind.
Yeah, like I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were just talking about. Have you seen? I know I'm jumping to a bunch of other movies. Have you seen any of the Planet of the Apes remakes?
No, are they good?
I thought they were really good, but like in them, I empathize with the apes over the humans in a lot of cases. But
Mm-hmm.
the apes at least have a lot of human characteristics. Like they love their children, they have law and order in their society. They don't believe in like ape doesn't kill ape and stuff like that. Like they have a lot of the admirable traits of humans. So I get why you would sympathize with them, or I don't know, some other alien race that has. I can't think of another one off the top of my head
Well,
that
in
has a lot
Starship
of.
Troopers, like in the book, there is another alien race called the Skinnies, who are like
Uh,
vaguely humanoid, and they're like really tall. And like the first chapter of the book is like Johnny Rico going down, doing like essentially terrorist attacks on them, of like blow stuff up. And the reason is that they're like, hey, the Skinnies were actually allied with the bugs, we want to get them on our side now. Which Heinlein loves obsessing over, like, just the structure of the military and how he thinks it would work. But like,
mm.
I don't, he's kind of lacking in, I guess, the broader political idea of how this stuff would actually pan out. Of like, you can't like make people your allies by like bombing them. Surprisingly enough,
Well, I mean, it worked for the British quite a bit.
maybe, but yeah, it's but yeah, in the case of like, okay, if you were actually taking stuff like this serious, it's like, I don't have anything against people that aren't Westerners. Like, I would like to live in peace. It's just wanting to look out for your own people first. And there's a difference between like living in peace and then saying we all have to be like one now. And like, I know, like the left kind of like again, they like the bugs, because they kind of see them as victims. Sorry if I'm kind of trailing off there.
No, I know. It also, I think, stems from, and this is kind of my issue with environmentalists, is in a lot of cases, it's not that they love the environment, it's that they hate humanity
Yes.
and they hate anything that humanity's achieved. Like, if you notice, it's, sorry if I'm kind of getting off topic, but like, environmentalists, I find, are almost always against things that would actually help the environment because they won't punish people enough. Like they tend to be against stuff like making pipelines safer, or things like that, because that would be allowing humanity to continue getting away with what they get away with. I think that's actually one of the reasons they're against nuclear power, is uh, because it would allow human society to keep existing. I think sympathizing with the bugs, it's such a strange perspective that your first thought is to immediately like sympathize with the thing that's trying to kill you.
And the thing that is so alien and so kind of like different from humans, right? It's this disgusting looking insectoid, um, arthropod that has no individuals in it at all. And it's like, there are people that like, oh, I'm going to sympathize, or I empathize with this more than the humans that are supposed to be portrayed as the good guys in this
Like I
movie.
get if you like in 40K you like the Tau, for instance, because they are
They
like
were
a
introduced as like the quote unquote good faction, but then the fans didn't like it because it doesn't really fit within the entire kind of theme of Warhammer 40K. So they had to kind of um, make them evil, and the fact that their kind of ruling class, the ethereal caste, is kind of subtly mind controlling everybody and just kind of forcing them to do whatever they want.
No, what I'm saying, like, I can understand being sympathetic towards them, but it like the equivalent. Sorry, the equivalent would be is if someone saw like read about Warhammer 40k lore and they didn't identify. They said like, I don't get the Tau, but the Tyranids are where it's at. That is who I like relate the most to, and like not like the Eldar, not the Tau, not even Chaos, Space Marines, like the Tyranids, and then that's just their go-to.
And I mean, you can like it because I think the Tyranids are really cool, but it's like there's a difference between just liking them because their like models look cool or like their lore is interesting, but like thinking, okay, these guys are actually, you know, need to be respected, or this faction is not actually
like empathizing
evil.
with them and thinking like, oh yeah, those are the people I relate to. I don't relate to like the humans or the elves, or I relate to the fucking hive mind dinosaur bug face.
Or it's like if you're taking Star Trek, if you like, you start sympathizing with the Borg.
Yeah, but I mean the Borg are even like, at least they're most of them are humanoid. Actually, that's interesting that we don't see non-humanoid Borg. That would be kind of cool. I guess that was just too much like special effects. Although that would be kind of cool.
To go off on a little tangent, something I kind of find funny about Star Trek is the fact that despite all of like the kind of talk about, oh, diversity, and you know, we should reach out and have diplomacy with other races and respect them all, it's real. Star Trek is generally written where any race that isn't a human or a Vulcan is just lesser. Like all the other races just have like these horrible
like Klingons are just retarded.
Like Klingons shouldn't even be able to go into space. Like that the Ferengi are like greedy, materialistic, disgusting goblins. That like the Romulans are like deceitful and like conniving, and that the Cardassians are just like evil fascists. And
they're literally 1984, like on steroids.
And then like even when they just go down to a planet where the aliens just look like humans, there's always just like something fucked up about their society of like, oh, like we have this kind of futuristic high-tech society, but like it works just because we have all these slaves. But like, yeah, only humans and Vulcans are like, you know, the actual races that don't really have any major issues.
Yeah, I feel like the Romulans were also like, they were deceitful, but they were too competent, and that's why they had to do the thing where they screwed them over and destroyed the Romulan Empire, because they couldn't have like an actual opposition to the Federation. But no, like it is interesting that you say that, because that is very much the case. Also, if it's like a cute female alien, then that's okay too.
Well, because Riker's gonna be all over it.
Yeah, if it's a female Orion, then maybe.
But even then, yeah, like in Starship Troopers, like just talking a bit about like the political science aspect of it is, I think you would agree then, like the Terran Federation is not fascist at all, really, outside of glorifying the military. But like,
they have a lot of, I think is in it fascist. I think they got parafascist. So there are a lot of aspects in terms of like ideology. I think they are in a lot of ways. Structurally, they don't really resemble what you would generally consider fascism.
But on the other hand, like the fact that, you know, you have men and women are serving together, and like they're all races and different cultures together fighting, is just kind of, it seems to be how Heinlein envisions it. Which, like, there's scenes in RoboCop as well where, like, you know, you have, like, men and women showering together, and, like, I guess as a way of showing, hey, in the future, like, this just isn't a problem, and I'm thinking this would always be a problem. There's a reason why they're segregated. And even in the book, like, Heinlein's like, look, women are just better pilots than men, and they have, like, their own sectioned off, like, part of the ship.
Yeah, so just looking at is it fascist? There is an in group and an out group in Starship Troopers. There is a conception, I think, of a new man.
Yes.
There's an indifference to economics. There's a masculine approach to problem solving. There is a vanguard, this party. There's a sublimation of the individual interests into the group, state or party. So I think they were actually like in the parafascist. It's just that they're civic.
And
And
there's the fact
they aren't
that
big
like
government.
the whole concept that this is all voluntary. That
Yeah,
no.
the military isn't interested in the economy or the
Mm-hmm.
like the society beyond like law and order.
Mm-hmm. What else? It's that what did you think about like the fact that they had to put in like a romance, a love triangle in Starship Troopers? I think that also just because it's almost weird where like everything has to have so many levels of irony now that you can't actually look back and like try and understand like how does this work if you're looking at this played straight or a satire of the
I'm
fact.
gonna be honest. I'm just looking at Denise Richards. That that helps the movie
Did
for
she
me.
play Diz or
Uh,
Carmen?
she, she played Dizzy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's she played the pilot.
Dina, no, I think Dina Meyer. Did she play? I can't remember who it was, but
Yeah, Dina Meyer played Dizzy, and then Denise Richards played Carmen.
and then Casper Van Diem is Johnny Rico, and uh, Neil Patrick Harris is Carl, who is like kind of left out. He's left out both in the book and the movie, where he doesn't really show up until the end, dressed like exactly like an SS officer, which does like have the fashion or a bit of the satirical part like on the nose there, but yeah, he's kind of an underdeveloped character. I kind of wish there was a little bit more on him, but like yeah, I suppose in the book there's also the issue that like there isn't really a reason why Johnny Rico signs up in the first place. At first it was just like, okay, I'm going to support Carl. I'm not even thinking of doing this. In the book they give it in the movie they give it a little bit more justification because
He
Carmen's
wants
going
to
into.
impress Carmen.
Yeah, and he's like jealous of like the jock guy that's like although they're all kind of jocks and chads in the movie. Like it's kind of the point.
Well, I mean, that's like another aspect of it, and like it to me, like it shows. I like to say how much the social revolution has progressed, specifically since the So, SERP calls the Great Awakening 2012 when Obama was reelected.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is from the 90s, and it's like okay, we have like hot women, we have stuff blowing up, we have guns, we have spaceships. Like we have stuff that actually is meant to appeal to like the people who are watching the movie, as opposed to now when it's like, oh, we have to have like unattractive women and we have to have like somebody morally like rant at you about how much you suck and stuff like that. But I like you couldn't make something like this today.
No, and I was thinking about it while I was watching it. Is again the fact that there's a lot of satirical elements to it, and you can look at it as satire. At no point do they do the damn Marvel thing where, like, you can't have like characters don't just like make winks at the audience or stupid quips. You know, it actually feels like in this ridiculous over the top movie people the actors are actually taking it seems like they're taking it more seriously than anything like Captain America or something where like they can do something super heroic and like you can have a musical sting but then they have to like look at the camera and wink or say some stupid one liner that like basically has the is the filmmaker saying don't take any of this seriously, we don't actually care about heroism.
Well, I mean, it's camp. Like camp is supposed to be like that.
Mm-hmm. It's supposed to like wink
It's
at the audience or
no. I mean, it's supposed to be like goofy and over the top and
mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Like, once again, it also reminds you a lot of just like, kind of like Flash Gordon or something like the sci-fi serials where
Mhm.
everything was just really over the top and like
It has that, but it's also like, again, it does, unlike now where again everything has to be on 15 levels of irony where you can't actually take anything completely you can't take things sincerely. Whereas the book
yeah.
also feels a little bit more sincere, as I said at the beginning, like that era of sci-fi where this is just like, the authors were big nerds who were like, we want to be able to, the science fiction elements are just window dressing, so we can just kind of explore like our pet political ideas in this setting.
Now, to be fair, it's always been. I remember I was watching a clip. They were interviewing the guy who plays Teal'c in Stargate SG-1, and he said that science fiction is fundamentally like about exploring existential issues using a degree of, I don't know if literalism or concreteness that you can't normally give them, like just like a friend. I guess in this case it's like the how humanity would react to an alien race and how that affects our definition of human. And you have like Laplace. No, you have is it Descartes' demon, or the solipsism of the outside world? But like in the Matrix, you could actually like physically represent that and
Mm-hmm.
kind of show it. And then that's like, I think, a core aspect of sci-fi. So that's always been there. But if it's good, it's tied directly into it. Like, there's a story, and that's like a theme of the story versus something that's just like they took a Reddit post and then cut it up and put the lines into like a vaguely sci-fi movie.
That, and also like it seems a little bit more honest though and sincere in Highland, because like the lectures given in the history of moral philosophy classes are basically just political rants about both like, this is why like liberal democracy doesn't work, this is like why violence actually does solve everything. um
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of my that's a line I actually really like in the movie of like, well, my mom said violence never solves anything, and he's like, dumb bitch, like, what would the city fathers of Hiroshima say? And then Carmen says, well, they probably wouldn't say anything, and Michael Ironside just like, yes, like,
Yeah,
naked force
exactly.
has solved all more issues than anything else in history. um
Like it's over the top and it's a joke, but it's also like technically accurate.
and like the philosophy makes sense, if even if it's like, I disagree with it more in the sense that it seems a little like too small of a worldview, I guess, because
Yeah.
like ideas of spirituality and like higher purpose is kind of like my biggest criticism of like the ideology that Heinlein's putting forth, because it
Yeah,
makes me think.
Heinlein, like, this is very tame by his standards. I don't know if you've read any of his other stuff.
No, I hear like he does have a lot of kind of very weird
Oh, he's
views.
a massive degenerate. Like a massive
Like,
degenerate.
didn't he like support polygamy or
Oh yeah,
something?
polygamy and orgies and stuff like that. I will say something kind of kino about him. He started Citizens for nuclear testing.
Based. No, I
Like,
that's great. No, but cuz yeah, I get it, like he probably wanted to be a lot more raunchy in Starship Troopers, cuz like, considering like what an actual army barracks would be like the characters are not saying golly, they're saying other things, but he wrote the book in 1959, so he couldn't exactly start dropping tons of swear words in it.
um, but yeah, he was like a libertarian. I think it's kind of as with like Frank Herbert. He was defined by just hating communism.
Mm-hmm.
Like the book Hellstrom's Hive is basically just Frank Herbert, like portraying like the most dystopian communist society he could think of.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And again,
and
like that era of sci-fi, like I strongly disagree with these people's views, but like at least they're interesting. And at least it's like they're not doing it just because these are like the regime approved ideas
Mm-hmm.
that are like portray that are supposed to be passed off as bold. Like I love Fahrenheit 451. I really like Ray Bradbury, and like
Mm-hmm.
there's like an interview clip from him of like talking about like spirituality and religion, and like he kind of makes a kind of a beautiful idea where whenever people say like, oh, look how tiny and insignificant we are in the universe, and I'm thinking, even if I wasn't religious, I would still answer that with going like, well, aren't we part of the universe?
Mm-hmm.
And Bradbury kind of said the same thing, and like the interviewer asks him like, do you see any conflict between religion and science? And like immediately Bradbury's just like, no, none at all. And it's like he's like more interesting than any of like the modern, Reddit science people like Neil deGrasse Tyson or any of these people. Like, can you imagine them actually trying to say anything profound?
Mm-hmm. No, like none of them do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all just yeah.
It's regime approved like ideas that are supposed to be passed off as bold or
Mm-hmm.
because again, even in the movie, they still have like Michael Ironside basically saying, "Well, this is why democracy sucks," and
Once again, at least it's an interesting like. It's an original take. Like it's not just them taking the same Marvel movie. It's not, at least with Highland. It's not just him taking the same Marvel movie and like making it over and over again.
mm-hmm. I was just gotta kind of I haven't watched a lot of the Marvel movies. I've seen like the first Avenger
Good.
movies, and then like a couple of the other ones. But it's
Dude,
like
they're so bad.
I always just kind of get this creepy feeling that like Shield or like the Avengers, their whole thing is like, if you disagree with liberal democracy, we will not hesitate to murder you. Like
Pretty much.
and it's like and again, like that's why you couldn't make this movie now, right? You couldn't have like because you couldn't even portray the fact that okay, it's satire, but like you couldn't even make it as satire because it would still be too offensive.
Well, you can't even like show the bad guys doing stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't even have like the evil bad guys do evil bad guys stuff because it's like too triggering.
Mm-hmm. Like
Or yeah.
that and what else is the leftists that defend the movie, I wonder how they would react to the fact that they whitewashed Johnny Rico because he's Filipino in the book, and they replace him with like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like, I don't know, Abercrombie and Fitch model.
Hopefully they'll I'm still waiting for the Disney remake of Tarzan.
Oh yes, please. But
Yep,
I don't know what Disney's like. I wonder. I'm just curious. I think we've talked a lot enough about Starship Troopers now. Or is there anything else you want to talk about with the?
No, I think we covered most of it. Just how bizarre it is that they would instinctively sympathize, like identify.
Even if it's not so much identify, it's the fact that like they're asking like, hey, like, well, why don't they make peace with the bugs? Or like, why don't they just try this sort of liberal diplomacy? Like completely not understand.
Well, why don't the bugs do that?
Mm-hmm. And like completely misunderstanding like how that would work, or it's
Well, the bugs didn't try diplomacy. They just dropped a fucking meteorite.
mm-hmm. And it's like I think you said in one of your Star Wars reviews the fact that like how kind of naive Padme is of thinking how politics should work. Like just completely not understanding reality, and it ties into the Ukraine cinematic universe, right, where it's everything has to work like a Marvel movie, and that people are just inherently good, and just a few like evil fascists ruin things. Like
Yeah.
it's like it reminds me of like in Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know the actual live action show premiered today. I am not going to watch it, of course. But
You'd have to maybe we should do like a fundraiser, and if people pay us enough money, we'll watch it.
Oh, I'll do it for money, of course. But
I don't know if
I
I would actually.
like people. They're mad that the Fire Nation in Avatar like is portrayed sympathetically at all in the show because they're evil colonizers, and like you have to portray them as just like black and white. They're just evil Nazis that I guess in Legend of Korra also outlawed gay marriage.
Yeah, like didn't they literally give like a Tumblrista unlimited authority to write canon?
I don't know. I
I
mean,
think is what happened.
again, I just ignore everything that is outside the original series as not being canon.
I can't even like imagine how bad it is.
The live action's gonna be.
Yeah, I can't even
People have already said it's not very good. Even like just not politically speaking, just like it's just genuinely bad. But
wonder if it's as bad as the Cowboy Bebop show.
I like they again the problem with remakes, right? It's that okay, the original source material is good enough, is already really really good. What's the point of remaking it? And especially now they don't even have the excuse of money because these things they always just flop and no one cares about them. So anyways, uh anything else you'd like to add or
No, I think that covers about everything. Someone's saying Asimov was cringe, but the Foundation trilogy was good. I gonna have to. I'm not sure if I'd say the Foundation trilogy was. It was. Have you read the Foundation?
no, I haven't.
It's okay, I guess. It's this. It's just kind of an extreme form of historical determinism. So I found it a little much.
I'm also well. I've only actually read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but that era of sci-fi is also quite interesting. Like when it just started with
Oh yeah,
Vern,
Victorian era sci-fi is great.
because it's also like a takes place in obviously a much more optimistic age about.
Yeah, it was back when people thought technology was going to make the world, even like into the 1950s, with like the space race and stuff like that. Have you seen Nadia?
Yeah, no,
Secret Blue Water?
yeah, I love that. I like the series quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought that was like I called it a big sloppy love letter to Jules Verne and 19th century sci-fi.
If you don't know, for the people watching, Nadia: Secret of Blue Water is like a loose anime adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and
Made
it's
by
made
Ono.
yeah
And
made by
gamers.
Hideaki Anno, the creator and director of Neon Genesis Evangelion. And if you like early 90s aesthetic, it's pretty good. It gets really weird at parts, but it's anime. I think I really like how they portray Captain Nemo in it as well.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. I thought John was actually a good protagonist. Like I was worried he was going to be kind of annoying and bratty, but he really wasn't
The,
at
the
all.
the the English dub's really bad French accent does actually kind of become charming after a while.
I didn't like the character of Nadia that much. I found her a little annoying, but no, I mean that's good. Also, Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one in a while. You know what movie I really love is, and it makes me really upset that there weren't more DreamWorks 2D animated movies. Is Road to El Dorado, because
Oh yeah,
yeah you could not make that movie today because you know the entire plot is well two white Spaniards come to the New World and like disrupt the natives' way of life and like try and steal all their money, but they leave, but they got like the super hot Latina GF at the end.
yeah. The Latina, yeah, the colonizer is taking away those attractive
And
women.
then in that movie, and like the bad guy in it isn't even Hernan Cortez, it's just some native shaman who wanted to like do human sacrifice.
That Jaguar was really cool.
And again, it makes me so sad that there weren't more like DreamWorks. Imagine if DreamWorks just kept making 2D animated movies that were like really nice. Like they made Prince of Egypt, they made this, and then like, or they made El Dorado, and then like not really much else. They started making stupid Shrek. I kind of hate what Shrek did. Like Shrek, I think can be blamed for a lot of problems that happen in animation.
I don't want to. Okay, so Shrek, I don't like, but I kind of want to support Mike Myers. So let's see, what else did they make? They made Puss in Boots, Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda was like okay, I guess. How to Train Your Dragon was like meh. Megamind was okay, I guess.
Somebody pointed out that in the new Avatar series, they said they're not going to talk about the war in Ba Sing Se because it would trigger the audience or something. And it's like,
yeah, which was one of the best, like the best.
And also, that's literally what the dystopian government in Ba Sing Se does.
Well, but I mean, that's also just how like the Chinese Empire would run, particularly near the end, where they would just keep the emperor completely oblivious to what was going on, so they could just run the country with no oversight.
And then by the time he was aware, like Puyi just basically, was a puppet of the Japanese, and then I feel really bad for him because he just basically became a political prisoner in communist China at the end.
Yeah, his autobiography is very obviously ghostwritten by Communist Party officials. That being said, it is a very interesting autobiography. But I just mean like that aspect is very much part of the like the whole Chinese of how Chinese and Japanese emperors are treated. Let's see here. No, but it's bad. I'm sure ER will do a good like tearing it apart. I almost kind of don't want to watch it though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going unless I'm paid to do it. I will not. I do not want to give money to watch like the Avatar Netflix.
I've been wanting to do it like an Endure of Rings, the first episode of Rings of Power, but I just have never been able to. Like...
I would do it because I do have Amazon Prime, so.
No, I would pirate it though. Like I have Amazon Prime, but I would still pirate it just to not give them a review.
But anyways, yeah, it was good to have you on. Just a little message for the audience is I think I'm gonna start trying to do like a Substack essay for the first time, just because you have to do that if you're in this sphere apparently, and it'll kind of be on just criticizing the concept of America as a propositional nation and comparing belief in that to basically what like Magda Goebbels did at the end of World War II, where, hey, I'm going to kill my children because I don't want them to live in a world without this ideology. And that's almost kind of if you combine the fact that America has no actual cultural, ethnic, linguistic, or religious identity, and it's only on these values, and then you say these values are the greatest things that have ever been part of the human race, and you're like, okay, so if those go away, what else is left but national, unaliving? But yeah, so that's on the docket. Thank you, people, for watching. Thank you, Argent, for showing up.
Thanks for coming on. That was a lot of fun. It saves me having to do a video myself.
Yep. All right.